What celebrities are actually assholes IRL? I read an interview with two sound techs who had worked with dozens of big name stars over the years. They were asked who was the nicest celeb to work with. And they both agreed Robin Williams after some discussion. When asked who was the biggest jerk, they both immediately said Dr. Phil. He just seems like such an arrogant asshole. Actually bringing people on stage who are intoxicated or under the influence and convincing them to enter into treatment facilities when they can't develop a sober or coherent thought. The ranches and behavior modification camps he sent kids to. I believe men are under investigation or have been sued by parents' patients. Mariah Carey. She came to my place of work once and was a nightmare the entire time. The way she talked to both her own team and my team was horrendous. You're not surprised. She has so many diva stories. In case you didn't know. Until this year there was a debate as to whether she was born in 1969 or 1970. It turns out it was 1969 and people theorize that she went with 1970 to seem younger. Yes, by just 1 year lol, which would be such a Mariah move haha. Even her mom was in on it. You can see it in an old interview lol. I saw Liv Tyler walk into an art exhibit at the moment that was one person at a time. The wait was literally 4 to 5 hours to get in and people would show up hours before the gallery opened to see it. When Liv Tyler walked in she cut in front of everyone and told the guard that she was next. He told her she was not. That accommodations could be made ahead of time for busy people or VIPs. But that she couldn't just cut in front of everyone with no warning. She threw a fit and argued with him about who she was. He just shrugged and she stormed off. About 20 minutes later Orlando Bloom showed up. Guard told him the same thing and he said that's fair. I totally get it and spent some time signing autographs. Class act that one. Exactly what you'd expect from a wood elf as compared to a Rivendell one. Eminem. I met him once and he told me if I waited for him after one of his shows, he'd come talk to me and my little brother who was only 6 years old at the time. We waited for him for 4 hours in the blistering cold. And he just said no. I ain't that mad though. I just don't like being lied to. He said if I wrote him, he'd write back. I know he got my last 2 letters. I wrote the addresses on them perfect. That's pretty shitty. Man. He's like his fucking idol. R. Kelly seems like a safe answer for this one. Can confirm. I worked security for R. Kelly in the early 2000s. Definitely saw some strange shit. I was talking with a couple of his dancers while we were waiting for Rob to show up at a VIP party. We were all laughing it up etc. Then all of a sudden they just went stone cold and quiet. They told me later in the evening one of Rob's boys had walked in. They were forbidden to even talk with anyone outside his clique. Watched quite a few girls fighting to get backstage with him. We all know what happened then. Surprisingly some of his management seemed like good people. They just kept shrugging things off. Funny how money can influence how much you're willing to put up with. I've heard lots about Ellen. She doesn't care about any of the people working on her show. And X200B. Jimmy Fallon though. He paid all the people working on his show during quarantine because the studio didn't. Jimmy is cool. Be more like Jimmy. Yep. I went to Ellen's show years ago with my mom and the moment they yell cut she's a completely different person. Jennifer Lopez. A friend of mine waited on her and her entourage. She made ridiculous demands. Threw fits over bottled water. Hogged her table for 3 hours. And then didn't even tip. And I know my friend is a great server. I have heard so many stories about her being a massive entitled asshole. Only speaks to the help via the assistant. Crew. Makeup artists. Sometimes even waitresses. They're not allowed to look at her or speak to her either and can only communicate with her via her assistant manager. Tell the makeup artist I want a new lip, while the makeup artist is applying makeup on her. Oprah. I was teaching a group, including her, to sell a few years ago and she refused to acknowledge I existed. A few times I asked if she needed anything. Drinks? Food? Etc. She would look towards me. But not at me. And then look away again. Russell Crowe was also on the yacht at the time. And he was an absolute pleasure to have aboard. A couple of times he observed the awkward exchange with Oprah and cut through the awkward silence with some small talk. Total bro. Russell Crowe was on set for a movie outside my building a few years ago and as I passed him while walking home from work, 2 days in office, Afternoon at home at that time, he dropped his lunch and the sheer look of disappointment on his face made me feel so awful for him. 3 people rushed over to help him but he insisted on cleaning it up himself and getting a new lunch. Seemed like a decent enough guy. I've read many times over that apparently Steven Seagal is not only a huge douche but quite the nasty person as well. Surprised I haven't seen him yet. Did you hear the story of how he claimed he couldn't be choked out? So a judo master went well. Okay. He not only choked him out, but Seagal even shit his pants when it happened. You know who surprisingly wasn't an asshole? Johnny Depp. My mom worked on a project with him a long time ago. She was one of his costumers. A few years later she was in the waiting room for a doctor and he walked in. He was the only other person in the room and he went right up to her and said hi and called her by her name. Edit. Since this is getting traction, I just want to say that while he's nice, she said he's very strange. Mike from American Pickers. Dropped massive antique doors needing expensive restoration with a small company near me. Was quoted. Agreed. The work was done. He ignored their request to pick the finished doors up for like 6 months and then offered them half of what he owed or they could kick rocks. What a dick. I'm baffled by the fact that this is already here. I came here to say both pickers are kind of assholes. They did the show in my hometown of like 2,000 people. And Mike ducked out of it because, apparently, he was getting married. If Frank had ducked out too, the venue was going to make them pay a huge fine, or something, plus partially refund the tickets. So Frank did a show without him but was clearly pissed off about missing Mike's wedding so he completely phoned it in. Told like 2 short stories. Answered a few questions. And then stormed off stage. Danielle on the other hand was an absolute sweetheart and hung out forever after the show chatting and signing autographs. She even took pictures with everyone that asked her. Always thought she carried their asses and that just confirmed it. James Corden. I've been here long enough to know that the moment I saw the question, he and Ellen would make it into top 3. And the honorable mention would be the Jenners. And Chris Brown is regularly brought up. Understandably. Floyd Mayweather. Didn't meet him personally. But my brother did. Works as GM at a luxury resort. Said he was easily the biggest pose he ever met, and he met many. Good thing is he'll never read this. Because he can't read. My old boss told me Nicolas Cage was a major asshole. He would come to a restaurant in New Orleans he worked at and be rude as hell to staff. Didn't tip much and had to be placed in one of their huge banquet rooms by himself and did not want to be bothered at all unless he called a phone requesting service. He said no one could stand waiting on him BC of how ridiculous he was to staff and how he had to be basically treated like royalty in his eyes. He was kicked out of a Vegas casino a few days back and the video is on par with any of his movies. I have never heard anyone say anything nice about Chevy Chase. He could have had a career resurgence on Community just like Danny DeVito did with ISIP. The difference is Chevy is an asshole who's impossible to work with. Chris Brown. I've heard Harvey Weinstein isn't too great either. Alec Baldwin. Just a story I heard about Kevin James being a dick. When he went to a restaurant he insisted that the server could only talk to his assistant. When the server addressed Kevin directly he got pissed off. I heard a story that when he was going shopping, his assistant went into a specific store and announced that Kevin James will be here soon. And to treat him like a regular person because he doesn't like to be treated like a celebrity. Remember when Jennifer Lawrence bragged about desecrating sacred grounds in Hawaii? Yep, that tells me all I need to know about her. Wow, just looked this up and she's told the story herself several times. She knew and said she knew what they were and did it anyway. Conor McGregor. You mean the guy who acts like an asshole all the time? I had the unfortunate experience of being in Jennifer Lopez's presence. This was back when I was a teenager in high school and doing work experience at a big hotel. It was during the European Music Video Awards in Edinburgh, Scotland. It was actually quite a big thing as we never really get many big events. So all the celebrities were in town. Anyway, I digress. Lopez was a guest at the hotel and her staff specifically told my manager that we weren't to look at Miss Lopez because she didn't want us to feel that she was better than us. I was like WTF. Literally being commanded not to look at someone does the exact opposite of that. I still think about what a cunt she is all these years later. Zachary Quinto. He yells at extras on set a lot. And Lea Michele threw a shoe at a costumer on the set of Glee. I always confuse him and Zachary Levi. Watching Shazam recently. I'm glad it's the not Shazam Zachary. The Property Brothers. The number of times I heard them say "Do you know who we are?" was near ungodly. I was super disappointed by this one distraught face. Edit, just for a bit more detail. They were at the bar in the hotel where I worked at the time. I didn't work with them directly. But I kept hearing them yell at the bartender, even from across the lobby, so I'm guessing they were pretty drunk and that they're probably not always like that. Not to excuse their behavior. Just to explain a bit better. It's nice to see that other people had better experiences with them though. Note, sorry for the double post. I used to work in an industry where I met a lot of celebrities, so I've had a lot of interesting run-ins. Do you know who we are? No. Because you're identical. Which one are you? Johnny Rzeznik, lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls, was a total a-hole when I was behind him in line at the Bristol Farms in Hollywood. He pulled the whole "Do you know who I am?" thing on the cashier. This was around 2002-2003. So still during their heyday. He was totally pretentious. He just wanted the cashier to know who he was. Drake Bell. He played a god-awful show at my music venue a couple years ago. Was pretentious. And super gross creepy to me. I definitely locked him out. He had to re-enter from the main public entrance, after being sleazy and trying to get me to do blow with him in our parking lot. Not to mention the grooming and taking advantage of underage girls. Are you in Jersey? If so, I remember that show. If not, we had a similar situation over here. So, Russell Crowe is apparently in a shat to work with, right? But people put up with it because he is a good actor. I had the pleasure of working in an area that he would frequent when he was in town. And he was really chill. I actually met him because we ordered the same drink at a cafe. I ordered mine before he came in, and he grabbed mine when it was ready. He then apologized. Like a normal person. Handed me my drink and remembered my name after that. Even said hello Dev Zero guy a few times when we passed on the street. Which improved my street cred immeasurably. I've listened to some interviews of his. And he pretty much owns up to being a dickhead in his younger years. I don't think he's the same person he was before. But who knows? I've heard Jared Leto. Doesn't he have a cult where he is the leader of a bunch of teenagers? Gwyneth Paltrow. Her company Goop sells all kinds of fake health remedies and pseudoscience nonsense. And her solution to marital problems is blowjobs. Which she gave, the solution, while going through a messy divorce. I've heard Ellen is a bitch. I've heard first-hand accounts from my cousin who does granite work for her house. Apparently she has tantrums that border on lunacy. He also tells us that her personal helper, the one who he really does business with, has a strange relationship with her in which they always fight. She always fires them only to rehire right away. Mugatu. This one time during a fitting he pricked the model. And then shouted at her, "Oh. I'm sorry. Did my pin get in the way of your ass? Do me a favor and lose 5 pounds immediately or get out of my building like now." I heard once that he tried to pitch a center for kids that can't read good to an aging model. And the center was tiny. It looked like it was the size for ants. It really needed to be 3 times that size at least. I have met numerous a celebrity. And I can't say enough good things about them. One who is consistently the nicest guy is Weird Al Yankovic. If you ever see him in concert, hang out by his bus until midnight and he will literally sign for everyone there. Mean celebrities boil down to the athletes. Which isn't a surprise to me. But I genuinely have not had a nice interaction with an athlete or seen them be nice to fans. Maybe kids. But not adults. Honestly. Athletes are 50/50 on being assholes. I have several friends who work for the Arizona Cardinals and they all have said that Kyler Murray is the biggest asshole on the team. But they all also agree that JJ Watt is just as nice as advertised. I took a theater class to fulfill gen ed requirements and we asked my professor this question. She's worked on sets in Hollywood and has encountered a decent amount of famous actors. She said the worst she ever had to deal with was Kiefer Sutherland. The nicest was Anne Hathaway. I like this. To know that Anne Hathaway is just as pleasant as she seems. Paul Fukin Anka is a grand tool amongst grand tools. Paul Anka the singer. Or Paul Anka the dog. Mickey Rourke. The dude comes in with his Russian supermodel girlfriend and drunkenly states, "Do you know who I am? Don't even care." Congratulations. You lost to Sean Penn at the Oscars. Marilyn Manson. Ben Stiller. He would throw M&Ms at his assistants to get their attention. He would get mad if he got his iced coffee in the Taco Bell cup that he liked because it fit his cup holder, with moisture on it. He literally didn't understand what condensation was or why it happened. He would yell at his assistant, "What is this wet stuff?" He needed his BlackBerry to have the battery swapped out before it went dead without him noticing it. If you missed the opportunity and the phone died, he would get mad and fire the person sometimes. 2 can't handle watching his movies anymore because I know he is pretty much just playing himself. That would be an amazing time to say moisture is the essence of wetness to him. I worked in a resort in Southern California and waited on many celebrities throughout my time there. The worst, Christina Aguilera would not order her own dinner or look me in the eye. And all questions and answers were directed through her husband. She was a major diva. John Mayer entitled douche. Avril Lavigne. Very cold. Adrien Brody rude and cold. Jason Kidd was a jerk. Diana Ross was a total diva and Paula Abdul was cold and rude. Nice celebrities. Uma Thurman tops the list. She bought champagne for the restaurant to toast the bride and groom at the neighboring table. Hugh Jackman's a sin and held the door open for a staff member. Young rappers. Literally all of them. I worked in the VIP section of one of the busiest airports in the world for a few years. Served and spoke to most celebrities of the time. Young rappers were always the worst. Most disrespectful. Do you know who I am? Dickheads. Lording over everyone around them and thinking it's hilarious. The rappers in a business a few years were lovely. Jay-Z is a great tipper and just always on one of his phones. 50 Cent is a genuinely interesting person. Eminem is polite and courteous to everyone who does shit for him and nice to have a chat with. He's nothing like the persona he puts on in front the camera. Do you know who I am? No. Tori Spelling. She ripped into me at the Apple store one time. A family friend grew up across the street from Dr. Swiss, and although she never said he was an asshole, she did say that it was very clear he didn't like kids at all. To spin such criticism on its head, I remember being unusually difficult, in a heated argument with my so. To the point where several people couldn't quiet us down. Until the amazing Jackie Chan tapped me on the shoulder, in a white suit. No less, laid out the situation, filming a commercial in Kowloon. And gave us a bit of marital advice. Wonderful human being. Mr. Chan. Wonderful person. Better than me. My mom met a ton of celebrities when she lived in Hollywood in the 70s. She mostly had good things to say about them. But she did mention that Tom Selleck was an asshole. Mom got the last laugh. Tom is trying to explain to old folks that he's not trying to steal their homes by pitching reverse mortgages. Paul Walker. My condolences for his family and friends. He might have been great to them. But he's a dick if he sees he was lesser than him. William Shatner. Was in Lexington, Kai for the races several years back. Eating in a restaurant and no one recognizes him. He just seems like this insanely demanding rich guy making a scene. Someone I know walks up as he is giving someone else I know his list of demands and says, "Who's this a-hole?" He flipped. Grabbed his family and bounced. Was honestly blind with rage. No one recognized him. He should have talked. Kinder, look at this. In the not arsehole column. My mom watched The Fly with Jeff Goldblum in the 80s and Always said he was a friendly guy. That's nice to hear. Goldblum seems like the kind of guy who gives great massages too. Katie Couric. This doesn't surprise me. Who would have known the 2 anchors on my childhood memory show today would be awful people that I do not remember fondly. At least Carey and Al Roker are awesome. Minor Z grade Aussie TV star Fiona Roundtree. Considering her gig was a travel show, which is a total people industry. She was a galactic cunt to me and the crew on an airplane I once flew. Also Shane Warne. Aussie cricketer. And all-round arrogant tosser. I met Brian Gumbel and Matt Lowe while working an event at Cipriani on Wall Street. Total assholes. Courtney Love, however, was a riot. Taylor Lautner doesn't tip and leaves his trash on the table. He is the least famous and talented of any of the celebrities I've interacted with at work, but he's easily the most annoying to deal with. There's a clip online somewhere of him trying to get Adam Sandler to dab and Adam tells him to stop. Bruce Willis and Steve Harvey. Neither let non-famous people look them in the eyes. Too huge, egotistical as shats. Tim Heidecker. Such an asshole. Had overlapping work friend circles and hung out a few times. Watched him berate a waiter for bringing him fish and chips with potato chips instead of french fries. Threatened to throw the plate across the room. Was just a douche every time I saw him. When he was stabbed that one time, I told my friend, who was at the restaurant, and we were both kind of like, yeah, I get it. Just from watching clips of him interacting with regular people as well as phone calls from that one podcast he used to regular, it can be easily determined that Tim Heidecker seems to be dealing with some major anger management issues. Glenn Danzig. Met him at an autograph signing. No response to a simple greeting. Seemed like he would have rather been anywhere else. Here's Danzig trying to pick a fight with a bigger man and getting put in his place. https://yahoo. BZFD7AGP1YXW. My middle school counselor had a son that was recognizable Disney kid. But not a super celeb. He came to our school a couple of times and was always a complete dickhole. Disney kids, when I usually hear them out of context, are usually douches. I had someone at my old school who was in one of those original movies. She was a figure is the least I could say. I never met the guy. But according to some other soldiers who had the opportunity to meet him at USO shows, Toby Keith is a total prick. Apparently it's like his patriotic songs are all fake. And he only does volunteer work, like USO shows, because his agent assures him it's good publicity. He is a serious asshole and was even before he got famous. Met him at one of his early concerts and he was a straight up dickbag to anyone that wasn't young, blonde, and top heavy. He had no patience for anything or anyone. He was awful to his stage crew and cruel about a gift from a small child. It was absolutely disgusting. I've never understood how he's maintained such popularity. Leona Boyd. My dad, classical guitarist, toured with her for a few years. And never really liked her everyone loves me so much attitude. It ended when she tried to badmouth one of his friends to him. He told her he quit. Now owns a music school in Toronto. He's not really a celebrity anymore. But Maxim Chmerkovsky from Dancing with the Stars. When I was in grad school I worked at one of his dance studios. And he and his father wanted the ground they walked on to be worshipped. He's a mediocre dancer who just found his 15 minutes of fame. And still acts like this. His younger brother is quite a bit better. But I still wouldn't want to hang around him. The rapper 2 Chainz. He came through my job and he was easily the biggest douchebag I've ever met in my whole life. I'd ask him things that pertained to my job and he would just respond in the nastiest way imaginable and for no reason either. Jeffrey Rush has a reputation for being an ass around his local suburb. After serving him, I can confirm. John Mayer is a bit of a cunt. My teacher grew up in the same town as him and they're around the same age. Both play guitar. Teacher walks past him after he gets done playing at a gig or something and says, "Nice set man, I like what you played," and John Mayer says, "Don't fucking talk to me." I've heard Dr. Phil is a real cunt. Can't say who's a dick. But my sister met Hugh Jackman when he bought a ticket to watch a movie in Sydney. Thankfully she said he was really polite. Van Morrison I heard was a real dick. Source, my dad who was talking to him at his job. Not what you asked, but I always assumed Justin Bieber was an asshole. He wanted to hook up with my friend and she said no. My friend said he actually was very nice despite being rejected. It surprised me. Recently he's been acknowledging that he was a douche in his teenage years and now he just kinda wants to live a quiet life. I have met several celebrities when I was working at the airport. I am not sure about their private life or professional life. But most celebrities are well mannered. Not the comedians for the most part though. Side note. Emmett Smith, Michael Clark Duncan, Dolph Lundgren, Jeff Dunham, and Angela Jolie are incredibly pleasant people to meet. Bernie Mac used to frequent a steakhouse near Chicago I worked at. Always rolled in with like 20 people. Demanded shit from the waitstaff, would yell "I'm Bernie Mac" occasionally while wearing a shirt that said the same thing. Didn't tip at all the 2 times I saw him. Funny enough, the guitarist or drummer from Disturbed would also come in from time to time with his GF and they're like 2 yo kid and was always super nice. Tipped everyone. Even as the bus kids. And would damn near bus the table himself before he left. I used to work at a production company. Worst I have ever encountered was Nicki Minaj. Was sweet as pie to the people in charge. Awful and demeaning to just about everyone else. Close second was Jason Derulo. Same deal. But he brought along an entourage so he had less time contact to be rude to everyone. Demi Lovato. Literally rotten and pretentious. Performative activism is her middle name. Just does what she thinks looks good to hear praise and feel validated. She's really two-faced and overly sensitive. Not the worst but definitely annoying emo. Michael Jordan. The guy is an asshole. Despite his wealth and millions. He does not believe in tipping people in the service industry. He would come to the casinos and gamble millions. He would have cocktails dedicated to taking care of him and his entourage and no one would make a single dollar. Since he didn't tip, his people didn't feel the need to as well. If you don't tip your servers, then fuck you. I was in a music video with Edward Furlong from T2. It was for Everclear's cover of The Boys Are Back in Town for Death Rock City. Fun fact. Pretty good movie. But he put a cigarette out on my shoulder right when they yelled action. Michael Bay. My friends work in the film industry and I've heard multiple stories of him being a coked up asshole. Screaming for them to get off set when he forgot they were working for him. Shouting and sacking staff for doing something slightly not correct. I would go more in depth but it's not my story to tell. I have heard from 3 different people now how bad he is. Maybe not an asshole story. Maybe more incredulous. Aretha Franklin walked into a rest stop along a highway that my sister worked at. However, my sister had no idea who she was. Just an older woman asking for a small soft serve ice cream cone. When she got it she goes, "Is that all get?" Sister goes, "Yep, that's the size of a small." Aretha grunts and hands her $2. But it's not enough to cover the ice cream. So my sister says, "I'm sorry. I need 39 more cents." Aretha gets all huffy and tosses some change on the counter and storms off. Immediately after, my sister's manager walks up and asks if she knew who that was. And my sister just says I have no idea and goes back to work. Terry Hatcher. I knew a guy whose dad was an actor and he got to meet Carey. Even to this day he will say, "She's such a cunt." Kinda weird for him to continually name drop her as being an awful person. Given the others he has been exposed to. But here we are. Maynard. He's certainly not A-list. But Jared Padalecki. The stories of how he behaves on set make me so uncomfortable. Jessica Chastain. Most difficult actor I've worked with. William Shatner. I was a ski instructor at a resort that held one of those celebrity ski events. For a charity called the Waterkeepers. Mostly it's a deal where the assigned instructor escorts the celebrity around the resort. Cuts the lift lines. Basically keeps the public from the celebrity. I got William Shatner. The man is a self-entitled jerk. Rude. Didn't want to talk to anybody, sign autographs. And constantly complaining. Treated me like a servant. Didn't want me to talk to anyone but be ready to run his errands. Maybe the worst 3 days of my life. I'll give him his due. I didn't get a very nice tip at the end of it. I have always wondered if he was a duck from birth or Hollywood made him that way. John Cena's an awesome dude, met him in N.O. at Mardi Gras. Many years back. Dude took pictures with everyone. I didn't want to bother him but my friend did. Got a pic. Thank him, then pulled my friend away. I was so excited to thank him. Worth more than the picture emo. The way Toby Maguire outplayed me at poker was shitty. With all his friends is now enemies is borrowed money. I've heard this from 2 different talk show employees now. Jessica Alba.